Okay. They seem to have upgraded the platform that we use since last week. So sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, well, let's get started, Rikesh. Like I said, thank you so much for taking your time on a Monday after hours. We really do appreciate it.
You're
Um, let's get into it. Let's start at the beginning. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you studied and your journey that's led you to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. Um, so I I started off on in the IT field, kind of, not knowing exactly which way I wanted to go. So I thought, okay, tech is probably a good way to go. Every job that you look at has some element of tech, so it was a good starting block. So I started a diploma in information technology at the time at Technicon, um, and that was a 3-year diploma. And then I did a B.Tech in information technology, which is essentially equivalent to a degree at university. The good part of doing it at Technicon at that point, I'm not sure if they still have them available, but it was a lot more hands-on, practical. You got into, creating software, technical development. So yeah, so that gave me a lot of knowledge and skill around software development itself. Um, and then I started working as a software tester um, at a company, and did a bit of development as well, software development, and realized that the technical was not, I mean, it was fine for me, but I wanted to understand, more the business side of things, move into the business side. And so from there, I decided that I would study a little bit further. And I did my honors degree in a BSc Information Systems, which was actually quite a good step up from where I was, because it then gave you the element of strategy and project management as a grounding from a knowledge point of view. And I think that also just held me in good stead to then move onto the business side of things. And I think, just in terms of understanding business strategies, and understanding how businesses run and how they take decisions is quite important, especially when you need to, manage that as part of your daily job. And I moved into a business analyst role, which for me was, was eye opening. It was really an element of being able to be exposed to the business side of things, as well as then, take those requirements and relay to a technical team. And so you kind of sat in the middle where, you spoke to the business, understood the need, and then converted that into a technical requirement. And I think that for me gave me very good grounding in terms of, okay, this is definitely where I see myself. And I started to then feel like, okay, I'm going in the right direction. Um, and that's how I started to push further into my studies. So I did a diploma in business analysis, really just to get the grounding of exactly what does this actually mean, how do you do it well, um, you know, what are the elements that you need to look out for, and then I I performed the role of business analysis for quite a long time, and I got into a consultancy, and that then opened up, a whole world of different businesses and analyzing different sectors and how they function and seeing the differences between the various businesses. um yeah, so my career kind of progressed, and my qualifications progressed with my career as well, which, I felt was pretty good. And then I moved into a role, of a dual role of a project manager, business analyst, and it was for a company that was actually starting up a project management office. Um, and I think just being part of a team, that of a startup team, you actually get exposed to a lot more than normally in a very structured environment. And I really grew there. I kind of felt like, okay, now I'm getting into the crux of business itself and issues that they experience, and how do you manage those issues. And my project management knowledge as well started to, kind of grow in that space. And because of the grounding that I got there, I decided, okay, the next step is maybe to do something on my own. And I opened up a consultancy firm, and I consulted for 8 years doing business analysis consulting and project management consulting. And the good thing about being or running your own business is that opportunities tend to present themselves in different forms, and it's never really the direction that you thought you would be going in, but it's not a
Yeah.
bad direction. And so you take chances, and that's how I started to get into building project management offices, or enabling businesses through project management offices. And one of my clients then decided that they wanted to also build a capability around a project management office, and they offered me a position to join them fully. And that's kind of where I sit at the moment. So I've really gone
Okay.
into this company to create the project management office and run it for them and put all of the governance and controls and structures in place. So
Yeah.
that's really my journey.
Yeah, and it's a hell of a journey,
It
Rikesh.
is.
I think congratulations. You're the first guest speaker that I've had on this webinar series that has, what is this? I've counted, one, two, three, four pieces of paper, essentially, a diploma or a degree. So very well done. And I happen to know that you're pursuing your master's at the moment. So you're doing your MBA with the business school, correct?
100%. Yeah. So I think that's kind of my structure is, as I need to know something, I kind of say, okay, well, let me study towards that direction, see what it's all about, equip yourself with the knowledge and the qualification behind it, just so that you can excel in what you do. And I think that's kind
Yeah.
of been success to my journey, not just studying continuously and then getting into something. So my career evolved, and I tailored my studies to make sure that I go into the direction that I think I
Yeah.
wanted to go.
Yeah, I love that because you often have that, more so with young graduates, who is essentially, our audience this evening. They pursue a thing without, understandably so, when you're 20 something, you pursue a thing because of knowledge that you have heard, not necessarily that you've
Yeah.
experienced. So I appreciate the fact that you've sort of you've transitioned your journey in steps leading to where you want to. Let's get into those steps a little bit. You've gone from IT essentially to business analysis to project management to consulting. So if we start at the beginning, how did you transition from a career that was sort of, wholly IT based into business analysis? How did that work for you?
Also, I mean, I think it's about trying to get into the understand the business and get into the right spaces that would allow you the opportunity. So a lot of consulting with existing people within the business and saying, how do I get to be more involved in the business? Looking for those opportunities, putting your foot forward, when they open up, and saying, okay, let me take a stab at it. And I think that's kind of, it's essential in any business that you're in, just to expose yourself as much as possible to every facet of the business and understand that. And I think that holds you in good stead, because sometimes you think you want to move into a certain direction, and when you're exposed to that, you might realize, actually, that's not the direction I want to move into. So a lot of it was a lot of relationship building, consulting with people in the field that I thought I wanted to go into, looking for opportunities in those fields within the company. And if I didn't find it within the company, I looked outside of the company. And I think that's just nature of someone who just has an idea of where they want to go and actually pushing those boundaries to get there. You've got to be confident in yourself. It's a scary step because you're stepping from something you know very well into something you have no idea about. And I think that's the biggest stumbling block with most people, is like you feel like when you get too comfortable in a space, you don't really want to step into the unknown. um, and I think when you do it a few times, you realize, okay, it's not that bad. And so that's kind of what's held me in good stead. And that's how my transition moved. Obviously, along the way, opportunities also open up and present themselves to you as opposed to you going and looking for it. So I think it's just about having that open-mindedness and evaluating it and making sure that, okay, this is really something I want to do, or it's not really the direction I want to take. Let me rather just focus on where I want to be.
But I mean, you have to try, right? So you take the step, you
Definitely.
stand at the step, you evaluate whether this is actually working for you. If it is, you take the next step. If not, then you stay where you are until you figure out where it is that you want to go next.
100%. And it's early in your career, it's a very difficult thing to do because you don't know what you don't know, and even the stuff that you do know, you kind of you have doubt in your knowledge to some degree. You always think that there's more experienced people that could do a better job, and so you're very wary to take these steps. But a key moment for me in understanding that change is necessary was um, when I was doing a software development role, and it was fine. I was performing well. I did it to the best of my ability, and there were no issues. But there was always something that I felt niggling that was missing, kind of that I needed more knowledge. And I looked at someone who was in a meeting we were discussing, and the guy said, I cannot wait to go and sit and code this piece. And I thought I could never be as passionate as him. And so that for me was like, if I could never be as passionate as him for this job, maybe I'm in the wrong role. And so that's kind of what pushed me to say, follow your passion. It's important for you to actually enjoy what you do, because then you start to explore and do it well. And so that jump is quite scary, but I think, if I had to give advice to anyone, it's just, if you're really not passionate about what you're doing, and if you're not feeling it, move into what you think you would be passionate about, and it just holds you in good stead.
No, that's so true. Your gut often, I mean, we don't pay attention to it, but it's such a vital tool that's built into us. Like, listen to your gut, and it'll tell you, is something right for you, is something wrong for you. It's definitely the way to go. But then it sort of it makes me wonder, do you think that there's a personality you need to be or fit in to be a project manager?
Yeah, I think part of it is being able to challenge the norm. Um, a big part, in fact, to do this job well, you must be able to ask the difficult questions. You must be able to go into environments that you don't understand and challenge people. And it's a difficult thing to do, especially when you're fearful about the fact that maybe I don't have enough knowledge. But I think, the approach in terms of how you challenge is quite important. And so it isn't, a challenge because I want to show you up of you not knowing what you're doing, but it's a challenge to say, is this really the best solution? Is there a better way that we can do this? Is there a quicker way we can do this? Have we thought about all options? And I think, an element of that comes from my analytical background, being able to kind of analyze and say, this doesn't make sense in terms of timelines. Should we be going down this road or not? And a lot of the times, when you're speaking to exec level people, you tend to not want to challenge. And I think, that's kind of one of the key things that I've learned over my time is just, challenge with good reason, because you might actually, bring a lot more benefit to the project itself than sitting quietly and just running it. And if the project at the end is implemented, but it's not successful, it kind of there's no point in actually running it. And so I think that's a key part of what we do. And it's also a good part that the analytical mindset comes into that job itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that these are skills that can be taught, or yeah?
I think they can be learned.
Yeah.
So
Okay. All right.
so the teaching isn't necessarily based on a qualification or some course that you can go and do. But I think if you want to learn it, you'll find avenues of where you can actually learn that. So, a lot of it I've learned through experience, where you you put your foot forward, you challenge, and eventually you realize, okay, my challenging is actually bringing some benefit. um, Maybe they don't think about things in the way that I think about it. And maybe I open up a new perspective, which is also a benefit to them as well. Like every stakeholder wants the project to be a success. So you kind of want to challenge every area so that you've covered that, you've provided for risks that can come up, and you've mitigated those risks. And for me, it's a collective effort. You kind of have the project, I have the knowledge in terms of the structure of how we want to run it, potential risk areas where we can get bottlenecked or not, and we need to come together to then put a plan in place that we both are comfortable with, and then run those projects. So I think that's kind of learning happens over time. It's through experience, it's through exposure. It is definitely through knowledge and studying, but I think it's also the application is important. Being able to use it in an environment is what will actually then give you the knowledge and ability to actually handle those situations.
And I mean, understandably, good communication skills, not just your ability to use words in the right order. What would you say, with regard to communication in an environment? You mentioned stakeholders. So how would you deal with like a difficult stakeholder, bearing in mind how you would communicate with them, essentially?
I think, and a course that I did to my benefit very early, which is not a qualification, was about emotional intelligence. And, I for me, I think no matter what field you're in, you need to be able to actually um, have that EQ, as they call it, have the emotional intelligence to understand that people respond differently to different situations. And so you need to be able to gauge people, how they interact, what will give you the greatest benefit in terms of the communication, and play to that strength. So if I know you don't like to be bugged at a certain time, or if I know that you don't like to be challenged in a meeting, maybe I'll take it offline and make a point and come to you, one-on-one, and say, listen, I think there's a problem here. So
Yeah.
whereas others have no issues, let's sit in a meeting, let's discuss it, and let's move on. And it's just being able to understand that people work differently, they respond differently, find what people respond to positively, and play to that to get the best feedback from them. And I think that's more so what I try and do, is look at everybody and say, okay, we can't paint everyone with the same brush. Some people are very sensitive, some are less sensitive. Let's handle the situation in the best way that we can to get them to buy also into our process. Because for me, I need to win you over so that you can open up to me. And I think, that's what I'm always evaluating, is how do I get you onto my side? How do I get onto a space where you don't feel threatened by my questioning or my level of communication? And once you get that, it then makes communication so much easier, because you know what people respond to, how to communicate with them, and you get the best out of it.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, pay attention and actively listen. Don't listen for the sake of listening,
100%.
Basic skills, and you can't take them for granted,
I think everything boils down to basic skills, and that is why I say, you can do as many qualifications as you want, but you need to actually like look at what's in front of you and how best to deal with it. And as you said earlier, trust your gut. If your gut is feeling like there's something not right here, but maybe this is not the right place to actually, expose that, take it offline, but make sure that you deal with it, because I've had many experiences where I've trusted my gut and it's definitely held me in good stead. So you may not always have the knowledge at the time to make a decision, but if your gut is saying don't do that, then don't do it.
Yeah, just pay attention a little. So I was afraid of that this conversation was going to be great and we were going to almost run out of time. But the theme behind the webinar is a day in the life of, and you are a strategic project management officer. So maybe in a couple of minutes you can tell us what's a day like in your life as a strategic project management officer.
Yeah, my days are all different. Lots of meetings, lots of engagement with the business to understand projects that they want to take on, what it actually entails. Lots of restructuring and asking questions about why are we doing this? What is the benefit? How do we measure benefit? And it's about getting projects run in a very structured way. So we've built a structure, we've built, measurement criteria. And what we try and do is we try and take on a project and expose all of that information up front, so that when we do measure success of a project at the end, we've defined at the beginning what we think will give us success. We measure it against that criteria, we set our baselines, and we make sure that there is progress against those baselines going forward. And I think that's key in terms of what I actually do. Management of the project itself will carry on, but it's about making sure that the structures are in place, that everyone is also aware of the importance of the project. So lots of communication, lots of challenging the norm, as I said, just so that we get this project on the right path to success. And I think that's kind of my day.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds very intense. What do you do? And this is, I'm throwing you under the bus slightly. What do you do in a situation as a project manager where things start going askew? So you have your structure. Structure is important. You have your timeline for your client. How do you handle that situation?
Yeah, more often than not, it's never going to go according to plan. A plan is just a plan, and so, you can put in as many buffers as possible, but also just the way businesses are changing at the rate that you need to change. You think you're going in a specific direction, and then suddenly that needs to change because there's something happened. And COVID taught us a lot about that. It took us in a completely different direction. Priorities all changed. What we were doing was no longer important. Other priorities came in. And so I think it's just about being aware, firstly, that change is going to happen. And at the point that it does happen is making sure that all the stakeholders are aware, making sure that they are comfortable with the direction in terms of how we handle this change. So change management itself is then your most important tool. And what we do is we define a project sponsor, and that is ultimately the person who will take responsibility for that project. And so I always discuss the change with the project sponsor and say, this is the direction. It's of no fault of anyone, or maybe there is something that's gone wrong in the project, but we're just managing these projects. And so part of managing that is to actually deal with change, re-gear, set the new direction, make sure that everyone understands why the project is going to be late or over budget or gone in a different direction, and then move forward with that. And I think if you just handle that in that way, just make sure your change management is there, communication to everyone is there, the project sponsors are well aware, there's new timelines that are set, you manage business itself, because businesses are running. We cannot just stop and say, okay, give us 2 weeks to think about this. You need to make the change, the best decision at that point, and then run with it. And I think, that, in my view, is the best way to handle, changes to the project itself.
So again, almost out of time, but I would love it if you could give our audience members, like I explained to you, it's students and graduates. So essentially, they're undergrads. That's our audience members. There's been a comment or two about this on the platform. Just can't share it across to you. But advice for students who are interested in pursuing a journey similar to you, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, my journey in terms of career growth and being able to equip myself with the knowledge in terms of studying wasn't planned. It just happened that way, and I think it's a matter of character. So I would say again, the best way to actually do this is have an idea of where you want to go with your qualification, because your qualification just opens the door for you. But once you step in there, there's a whole world out there. And so experience things, get yourself involved in what you think is the right direction, experience it. And if you feel, okay, I really enjoy what I do, then maybe, study further towards that. But don't necessarily always move to the nth degree and try and finish all your studying and then get a job, because then you might realize I've spent, 8 years of my life studying, but I don't actually enjoy what I do. And that's just, it's a difficult pill to swallow when you've done that. So I think, just making sure that you expose yourself. I mean, there's lots of companies that are willing to actually offer job shadowing. I wish I took up that opportunity when I was in my looking through my career. Go shadow someone, see what it is like in the life of Rikesh. What do I do on a daily basis? Is this something you will enjoy in a work environment or not? And I think, those kind of things actually put you in good stead for your career growth itself.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you so much for that. Rikesh, we're out of time, so I just want to send my thanks now again for taking time, especially on a Monday. It's never easy.
Yeah.
Monday hard. We appreciate this, and if there is anything more from the audience, I'll reach out to you on email.
Thanks so much, Priya.
Okay, have a lovely